Welcome to Intuitive Connections, where spirituality and psychology meet to help you be your best and brightest self. I'm your host, Victoria Shaw, and in each episode, I'll help you to awaken your own inner wisdom, step into your power, and live a more divinely inspired life. You're here to let your inner light shine. Are you ready? Let's do this. So hello and welcome to Intuitive Connection. Today we have an intuitive reading with our guest, Tracy. And yeah, I'm excited for this. I love doing this. And I'm excited to see what your question is and find out more about what's going to come through. So Tracy, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yay. All right. Tell me and the listeners what you would like guidance on today.
Well, I'm looking forward professionally, and I do a variety of things. I own my own business. I'm a game designer, and that's fun. I enjoy it very much. I'm involved in a couple other things. I also am. I work on a podcast, and I've been doing interviews on the podcast, and I've been doing some research, some writing up of intros, that kind of thing. And it's been a lot of fun, and it's been challenging for me, and I've learned a lot. And so it's been really exciting. Now, I am trying to decide for myself, do I continue on and really put all my energy besides my business, into the podcast, or do I start pursuing some of the opportunities which are starting to crop up for me, which, involves collaboration on a different kind of game that I haven't worked on before. And one of the reasons that I'm questioning things for myself is because the host of the show, we were very, working together very closely, and he's brought in some other people. And so we're not in sync. I don't want to say that, but I don't have as much work going on there as I used to. And I'm not sure if that's just a temporary thing or if that's something that is kind of permanent moving forward, and I should look to these other opportunities to start creating new things.
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question in a lot of ways. And I think a really good one for listeners too, because oftentimes, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, life circumstances, sometimes our life is showing us the best path forward by sort of editing certain things and amplifying other things. And then sometimes life is showing us where we feel safe and comfortable by amplifying certain things and editing certain things. And so sometimes it's hard to know. It's always both, but sometimes it's hard to know which way to play it. So I'm going to tune into you and we're going to see what comes through, and I'm excited about it. And the first thing that I get is you are incredibly good at game design. Okay. So you're incredibly good at what you do. And though, you may feel like some of it's rote and not always as creative as you'd like to be, and, kind of nuts and bolts kind of thing, where I think part of you longs to be a little more out of the box than life has let you be up until now.
Mhm.
I want you to know you're doing a good service with the games that you create. Some of them are more high vibey than others, but you put a really nice energy into what you do and who you work with. And I really do feel like there's something in your mission and purpose coming as a spirit into a body that is satisfied to some extent, or has been up until now, by the work that you do creating games, and that there's some sort of energetic vibration or exchange that comes through the work that you do that touches other people when they play your games. Okay. So I wanted to tell you that if you weren't aware of that, because it's not something we'd normally think about, but it's very clear and it's pretty huge. Okay.
All right.
And they say too, it doesn't really matter how popular it is. It doesn't really matter how innovative it is. It doesn't really matter as long as it's not, tricking 4-year-olds into stealing their parents' money. It's all good. I've worked with the parents have said 4-year-olds. So I know that is a thing, but I get that there is a level of creativity and interest in what you do, and it's really cool. And I also get the sense that creatively, you would like to break out of the box. You would like to feel like in this phase of your life that you can express yourself a little bit more, and that you don't sort of have to answer to all the time to what everybody else wants or thinks or the convention. Does that resonate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I would start to look in your life for opportunities to do that. And part of it is releasing the belief that says, I'm stuck in a box and I have to do what other people want in order to be successful. That's some conditioning that you have. And once you kind of address that and honor all the work that you've done up until now and how valuable you have been to the world, even working within the box, because I really think it's important that you honor the gifts that you've given to the planet just by doing the thing that you love as well as you do it, because it's not insignificant. Okay. And the more you kind of tune into that and honor that and validate yourself for that and feel into that, I think the opportunities to do more and to do more creatively will really expand for you.
Okay.
And I think the podcast was sort of an example of getting out of the box a little bit for you
Right.
and the example of what was possible.
Hmm.
But I don't know that that particular, I feel that it was a stepping stone, but I don't necessarily think I think it was more of a, here's what's possible, but it might not have been like, oh, I have to do this forever.
Right.
Right? Like an analogy is like someone I know, yours truly, has just left a very long, decades long relationship. And early in that transition process, I had a crush. And I hadn't had a crush on like another person in like 30 years, you know? And that crush I knew at the time was allowing me to see what was possible and allowing me to see what was possible out of this 30-year relationship, right? That, I was pretty committed to for 30 years, right?
Right.
So I feel that, another word that comes through is like muse. It's kind of like a muse,
Hmm.
right? So it helped you. It also helped you expand in so many ways and get out of
Hmm.
your comfort zone in so many ways that I think will help you moving forward.
Uh-huh.
And I also think as a game designer, you should be on more podcasts.
Okay.
Okay. As a guest, as a, like, you may end up having your own podcast on this, but I feel that being on podcasts and being in the game design podcast world, not from a place of ego, but from a place of curiosity and exchange and networking, it might also kind of fuel your creative process a little bit. It might help you kind of understand who you are as a game creator,
Okay.
personality wise, and what you bring to the table in a really unique and special way. It'll help you tap into your flavor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't necessarily see with this particular situation. I feel that this situation, and again, if it expands, keep doing it. If it's not distracting and you like it, I wouldn't let it go. But I feel that eventually you're probably not going to want to work for somebody else
Right.
and kind of have their framework be, your limit. Does
Right.
that make sense? Because that's been a story for you going all the way back to childhood. It's a story that I think that you're really, really ready to change in a big way. And again, it's around recognizing that I never have to let anybody else in my world limit me ever again.
Right.
And that the only thing now is look at where I might be unconsciously up until now, sometimes limiting myself because I believe that other people are capable of limiting me
Okay.
or that it's important for me to adhere to other people's limits.
Right.
And, I think that what's happening with this gentleman is a little bit of a reflection of a manifestation of that story, where as you come more into your own in that framework, that person doesn't love it so much because they want to be in control. So by bringing other people in and making you not so important, that person feels safe again.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. You just got really excited and ran with it and were really inspired. And again, it's a childhood story that whenever you got really excited and ran with something, someone shut it down.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so when we find these patterns, in our life, that's fine because you're not defined by them. You just kind of notice, oh, and then each time you work with it with more presence, more
Hmm.
awareness, and the adult self comes in and goes, oh, sweetie, look what's happening. It's so sweet. That's so funny. Let's redirect. The patterns tend to fall away and we create much better ones, that are more in line with our dreams because you have dreams.
Right.
All right. So I just said a lot and I kind of rapid fired. So I will be quiet now and see how it landed.
I think that that all really does resonate. And when you describe it as, becoming less important and all of that, it was very confusing at first. But when you frame it that way, that does make a lot of sense to me. And I try and remember that most of what other people do is about them and not me. But it can be hard, because it's like, well, is my contribution not valuable anymore? And so then I started chasing it. And, I want to do more of this. Wait, what's going on? Why am I doing less of it? And so that makes a lot of sense to me. And it makes a lot of sense to me about trying to fit into someone else's box. And that really has never been me, but it's also a safe and comfortable kind of behavior pattern. So that makes sense. And you're right that it's gone back to childhood.
Yeah. And again, in this particular case with the podcast guy, I don't think confronting him would work because he would just tell you it's not happening.
Absolutely.
So it's not like you can say, "Why is this?" He'll be like, "What do you mean? That's not what's happening. Everything's fine." But I would say, enjoy it. Don't take it personally. Do what you do and then take the time that you have now from doing less of that if you want to continue doing it at all to do other things. And it could be other podcasts and other like,
Right.
but the skills that you've learned from that are invaluable. Your contribution has been quite a bit. But again, some people, if they feel that you're contributing too much,
Hmm.
it dings their ego a little bit, and I think that
Right.
was sort of his thing. He doesn't wanna lose control of his baby.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your next steps and some of these other opportunities, if you don't mind, and where you see yourself going.
Sure. Well, as I said earlier, a new opportunity has just come up, and it's something that I had been thinking about for a while, but not sure how to execute it. And it's a very different kind of game than what I had previously done. I don't know a lot about the mechanics of this particular type of game. And the games I do are board games, but this is moving more toward role playing games. And so the role playing games to me opens up a possibility for a lot more storytelling. And I like the storytelling and kind of games that I've been doing, it's a little bit limited because the story is really a vehicle for moving through the game. And in this case, with this new kind of game, it's really all about the story and it's about character development and people being able to dive into this world and, build something for themselves. And so that to me is very exciting. And I've been contemplating it for a couple of months. And then between yesterday and today, I had some friends who introduced me to friends of friends, and suddenly they're like, "Yeah, we want to do this thing." And it became a possibility. Now it's not hasn't really developed into anything. There's no serious talks going on yet, but that looks really exciting. And at the same time, I was asked to dive in and do facilitation. And part of my background is in strategic planning, strategic organizational change. And I've done quite a bit of that in my career. And there's a group of people who are trying to build a new communication network in a community of people that are very diverse and typically do not have good communication between different groups and so they asked me to do the strategic planning. And I was like, that's a place I'm pretty comfortable and I can do that, but it is a big lift. It's a lot of work and don't know if I can maintain my business, continue to launch a new product that I'm in the middle of, my old format of games, start a new kind of game and then do this strategic planning along with the podcast. And so it's a lot and I'm trying to decide where do I put my energy? How do I decide that?
Okay. That's a great question. With the strategic planning piece, the only red flag that I'm getting is compensation because it doesn't feel like it's commensurate with the amount of work that you're going to put in. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate.
And that kind of matters. And I know that you have a desire to be of service,
Hmm.
which is why I want to tell you no matter what you do, you're of service. Games are fun. You're spreading fun to the world, and old fashioned fun. Oh my God. I have no idea what your games are, but like they don't involve holding a piece of tech equipment.
Right.
I mean, so yeah, the world needs that. Now I understand so much more. So don't undervalue yourself. I think you may, but you tell me if I'm wrong, be the kind of person too that can get very excited about other people's projects if they're very excited and they're very excited about you. And that's great. I love that you participate in other people's enthusiasm. However, sometimes we can get caught up in that and swept away into someone else's enthusiasm where it's not beneficial to us.
Yeah, and I do. I love collaborating, and part of what I am naturally good at without any effort is helping people figure out how to realize their own dreams.
Yeah.
I love having those conversations. It's really easy for me to help people sort out what it is that they want to do and how they're going to do it. And I can get very caught up in that, which is probably one of the reasons I got so caught up in the podcast, is because it's exciting. It's a great podcast. I love working on it. And, I was like, yeah, I want to do more of this. And so it's very easy for me to slip into that.
And I do think you should do more of the podcasting. I think it's going to be something that you do. This opportunity may be the first step,
Right.
but just not the last one, right? You may have other opportunities. Things may come together. I also don't get the sense that you're someone who likes to just do one thing. So, it's fine. I'm like that too. Like I need to have a bunch of different things going on. Like otherwise I get bored.
Yeah.
And I found too creatively when I'm doing like writing or creative projects, it's always good for me to have a couple sitting around so that when one isn't flowing, I got something else to work on.
Yes.
So that's how I am. That wasn't out of read on you, but I feel that you like to have a bunch of different things in the air. So I think with that project, it feels about valuing yourself and also reminding yourself, no matter what I do, I'm of service.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
You have a lot of excitement about the role playing game. So I want to talk about that too. And I want to talk about this for listeners from the perspective of the law of attraction, which is something we talk about a lot on the podcast. Are you familiar with that concept?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea that, we're creating this thing as we are experiencing it, as we are going along, where you feel like a lot of excitement is usually a good thing because that's where your soul really wants you to flow. It's a good thing. And where you feel a lot of excitement and you put a lot of energy into it and you let yourself kind of go with the excitement, a lot of times that's where you get like the best payoff, right?
Mhm.
Because your soul is like wanting to go in that direction and you're feeling the momentum into that direction. And we create really, really beautiful things.
Mhm.
Okay. Again, because of some of your conditioning, you may have found early on your excitement was shut down a little bit. So it doesn't may not feel safe for you. But I think also if you look at the overall bulk of your life, if you see all the times when you followed your excitement,
Mhm.
they almost always pay off.
Yep.
Correct?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So you know that you can trust that, trust the excitement. And then the other piece is trust yourself that things will come in the right place in the right time, that all the puzzle pieces will fit if you let them.
Mhm.
Meaning, if you're really excited about the role playing game, but you don't know if it's going to really come together yet, you put the energy there, you get excited about it, you let it sit there, and it will come back to you like a beautiful boomerang when the space and the time is right.
Okay.
That might be tomorrow. That might be after you make some money or do some things somewhere else. That could be anywhere. So again, it's kind of okay sometimes to put all our dreams up in the air, throw them all out there, feel them all, and then kind of wait to see like what lands where when
Yeah.
and let life kind of show you. And again, when we personalize it, we get into trouble. So when we say like, what did I do wrong on this podcast that he doesn't? And now you have your answer. So
Right.
you won't feel like you did something wrong because you didn't. But, that makes it a little uncomfortable. When we recognize that life just naturally edits things or pauses things or moves things around to give us the optimal path forward, the optimal level of activity at any period of our life that we need. Sometimes we're very active. Sometimes we need rest, right? If we trust that things will work out in their own time and that it's just our job to sort of be present, read the signals, and follow our joy and our love and our natural inclinations, we cannot go wrong.
Mhm.
Okay. And you know this because you've been doing this. But again, sometimes we get overthinky, especially when something gets triggered.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've probably rarely, if ever, looked for a job in my life.
Yeah.
The right thing just always seems to come, and it's always been fairly effortless. I think one time I looked for a job, and it was one of the worst experiences I ever had.
Yeah.
Not looking for the job, having the job I found. And so it's always kind of just flowed that way for me, and it seemed like I never needed to really think hard about it. The next thing just showed up. And now you're right, of feeling a little bit triggered of, oh, I was really loving this. I was loving the collaboration. I was loving, working with this person. And it's like, well, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
And just not even worrying about that makes everything so much easier.
Yeah. Exactly. And I see you're someone who easily manifests from your joy, from your excitement, from your just, if there's a gap in things, you just naturally are like, oh, there's a gap. What would I like to fill that with? Okay. And that's kind of what you're doing now by throwing all those things out there. Again, the podcasting itself is not done for you. I would keep looking into ways to make that a thing. You really enjoy it. It's fun. And this person may come around again too, because you
Mhm.
are actually very valuable to him and he would feel your loss if you leave. But this was his way of putting you in your place because he just doesn't want to depend on anybody too much that isn't him because it's his show. And probably subconsciously too, there might be a little of you wanting to stretch, your elbows out a little bit more and
Yeah.
feel a little bit more like, hey, I want to do it my way. And, that might be a sign that you're ready to hatch out of that particular egg and move on to the next one.
Yeah, I don't think that's particularly subconsciously either.
There you go. There you go. And so maybe it's going to be doing your own podcast or collaborating with different people where it's on more equal footing or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I would feel into that. And I think you kind of know how much you can handle and how different things flow. And, once you open a particular door too, if you open a door and you don't like the smell of the water, I don't know, I see a bunch of fish and water like pouring through the door. You can always stand out of the way, clean it up, and close the door,
Okay.
you know? And that's kind of how I see this. But the guides are saying too, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you must.
Well, that is very good advice that I need. Yeah.
You can always say no and someone else will do that thing. If something doesn't appeal to you, if it doesn't bring you joy, if it doesn't light you up, you do not have to do it,
Mhm.
right? And again, someone else will be the right fit for that if you are not.
Right.
All right. I think this was a lot. Is there anything else that you want to share really quick before we wrap up?
No, I think that this all resonated with me quite a bit. I mean, I think that you were very spot on with who I am, who, the partner with the podcast is, and the kinds of things. It's interesting because I have been thinking about, what other kinds of podcasts that I might want to do because it's an area that is of interest to me, but it's not like I'm an expert in that area. I'm just kind of an enthusiast. And so there are a lot of areas that I'm not only passionate about, but that I am an expert in. And so I've been thinking about that a lot, and thinking about developing, my own thing. And I just before I was working on this particular podcast, I just was stuck. Like, I don't know how to do that. How can I do that? And you're right. This may have just been kind of the catalyst that I needed to say, okay, here's a couple of steps. Now you're starting to get the feel for it. So that's really good food for thought for me. And I'm definitely going to keep in mind the image of the water and the fish, and I will get back to you if that ever makes sense.
I appreciate that because I don't know where it came from. I've done a couple other ones today where people have been like, wow, I can't believe you got that image. And this one, maybe not. We can't get them all. But then I also love your faith that maybe tomorrow you will open a closet and water will pour out. I hope not, actually, with fish, no less. I think you're good. Anyway, it has been a pleasure to talk with you. I'm excited to see what you do next. I actually think there's a lot of possibilities and a lot of change on the horizon for you. And again, the last thing the guys want to let you know is that you've always been of service through your work in ways that you cannot even comprehend. And so never feel that you have to do anything special to be of service, but also as you follow the light of your soul, your joy, your enthusiasm, your light, you will be aligned with doing that even more.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this great opportunity, Tracy. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As always, if you are interested in getting a reading with yours truly, you can find information about that on my website, victoriashawintuitive.com, or you can just keep tuning into this podcast and learning from all of our wonderful guests, because I know that each time we do one of these readings, I know not only is it speaking to our guest, but there are wisdom nuggets in it for all of us. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and namaste. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you found joy, strength, inspiration, and clarity from today's episode. If you'd like to learn more and connect with an amazing group of like-minded souls, please join us over on Facebook in the Intuitive Connection Community Facebook group, where we explore these topics in deeper detail, have additional live teachings, and host
Facebook Lives with our amazing guests. I hope to see you there. And of course, if you want to learn more about me or the work that I do, please check out my webpage, victoriashawintuitive.com. Thank you so much again, and namaste.